It's time to do business. We do 55 minutes of business right here on Business Incorporated. And here's what we have prepared for you for the next 55 minutes. We go to South Africa, where bailout bill for Eskom is increasing. It now nears $30 billion. An assessment of the worst performing currencies on the continent, and we see Nigeria, Ethiopia, and South Sudan leading that list. Celebrating World Food Day today, and we find out the state of food security in Nigeria. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We'll start as usual from the global space, telling you that oil prices in China in early trade on Wednesday, and uncertainty over what may happen next in the Middle East conflict after demand concerns knocked the market to its lowest since early October. In the previous session, so keep our eyes on the number. We'll see a bit of rise right there, 0.24 Brent at $74.39, WTI 0.3, $70.77. I think uncertainty is the name of the game now, but oil prices tumbled more than 4% to a near 2-week low on Tuesday because of weaker demand outlook, and after that media report that Israel would not strike Iranian nuclear and oil site, that eased fears of a supply disruption. However, concerns about an escalation in the conflict between Israel and Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah persist, with the U.S. on Tuesday saying that it's opposed the scope of Israel's airstrikes in Beirut over the past few weeks. For now, there's also the market looking out for latest U.S. oil inventory data, with the American Petroleum Institute reports due later on today, and Energy Information Administration is coming the next day. That will be Thursday. We're still in the global space now, but metals, gold prices extended gains to a second session, driven by weaker equities and bond yields, while traders are eagerly waiting U.S. economic data to gauge the Federal Reserve's timeline on a potential rate reduction. We see spot gold in the green, 0.6%, $2,676.63. Been hovering around that for a couple of weeks now. Same level with U.S. gold up 0.5%, $2,693.30. Spot silver also in the green, $31. A bit of more uncertainty in the market today compared to what we had yesterday. So $31.99 per ounce. So platinum more than $1,050 per ounce after it gained almost 0.5%, and palladium 0.6% at $1,018 for an ounce. That's for the metals, and we know that market participants are keeping a keen eye on U.S. retail sales. There's also the industrial production and the weekly jobless claims that's due tomorrow, Thursday. Gold needs a stronger than expected data to change the rate cut trajectory, but this should still boost investment demand and drive prices to a record high. Now, that's not so good story for some countries on the continent, and unfortunately, Nigeria is one of those. The official currency of Nigeria, that's the Naira. We give you the numbers every morning, but just capturing a summary of it to say that the Naira has depreciated by about 43% as of August 2024, making it one of the worst performing currencies in sub-Saharan Africa. According to the World Bank's Africa Pulse report, the Nigerian Naira, along with the Ethiopian birr and South Sudanese pound, ranked the region's weakest currencies. The report cited increased demand for US dollars, limited dollar inflow, and delays in foreign exchange disbursement by the central bank as major factors driving this. And despite foreign exchange market reforms, such as the liberalization of the official rate, which Nigeria has embarked on, unfortunately, we still see that the Naira continues to lose value. Nigeria's academia continues to be a repository of knowledge which holds potential to accelerate the country's status among developing countries. However, according to the chairman of TETFund National Research Fair Committee, Dr. Umar Bindir, there is a gap obstructing the realization of that potential. Dr. Bindir, who was a guest on Business Morning, believes that a meeting of innovators, members of the academics, as well as investors will bridge that gap.
In our country, this knowledge resource, these capacities that we have, we're not mining it very, very well. I can honestly tell you for free that if you go to any first-generation university, Ahmadu Bello University, University of Ibadan, and so on and so forth, and you ask them within the 10-year period, for the last 10-year period, show me the number of papers or reports, conference presentations, journal publications that you have done over these years, it probably will fill a lecture theater. But if you ask the question, out of all this knowledge, how much of it is helping our farmers to produce better? How much of it is encouraging dairy farming in Nigeria? How much of it is making young people manufacture equipment to power small-scale farms, like was being discussed? Then you start getting questions. This connection is the difference between industrialized countries and developing countries. And this is what TETFund deliberately wants to crack and create that linkage. That valley of death, we have to build a bridge.
Building the bridge there, but it's World Food Day today, a day organized by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. This has been celebrated since 1981. The theme for this year is Right to Food for a Better Life and a Better Future. And of course, the goal, as always, is to raise awareness about hunger, food security, and to ensure that everyone has access to healthy and nutritious meals. This is especially important for countries like Nigeria, where millions of people still face challenges. For instance, the United Nations says about 82 million Nigerians may go hungry soon, especially after that flood we saw in Maiduguri. World Bank says even now, over 1 million Nigerians are experiencing food insecurity. Recently, we saw from the NBS the cost of healthy diet at about 1,255 for a meal, which we know now is a difficult one for some Nigerians to access. Food inflation, from numbers released yesterday, we see went up about 11.88% to 37.53% for food inflation. And these are the realities for Nigeria and Nigerians. So while we celebrate World Food Day in Nigeria, are we moving forward when it comes to food security? Let's talk to a farmer. They are the ones who are supposed to be producing this food for us. Is the Chief Executive Officer of Banjoko Farms, Mr. Tunde Banjoko, joins us virtually. Good afternoon, Mr. Banjoko, and thank you. Happy World Food Day, if I could say that.
Thank you, Ini. Thank you for having me. Yes, happy World Food Day.
But should we be saying happy? Should we be saying happy World Food Day in Nigeria when we see the cost of food? Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be stapling at all. In spite of the efforts of the government, I mean, we've seen packages, we've seen bag of rice being sold at subsidized rate. We've heard stamp duties are being suspended, and yet we're still feeling this pinch.
I think it's more about the implementation of all these policies that we are seeing the government roll out from time to time. It's beyond the papers. I think where the gap is the implementation, like the discount or waiver on custom duties, distribution of the food. We saw some of the criteria for the food being distributed, but I'm not sure they are really getting to those who really need it. We've seen cases where some of those food are being rebacked, and we've seen the struggling at some centers where the food is not readily and easily accessible. So I think for us to look at this properly, we should look at what's the model for implementation. That needs to be reviewed for some of these policies to start having impact. We've also seen some cases where some of these things are also being politicized rather than giving it to, every Nigerian We see some people giving it to political party members and affiliations only. I had a first-hand experience of one area where I'm very familiar with, where names were given to them on the people to give it to. Not even everybody in that area here in this Lagos state. So that's why we are not seeing the effect of these policies. And that's why it's a sad thing that since 1979 till 1801, that this World Food Day has started to raise awareness for hunger. To raise awareness for hunger, Nigeria is still not being actively doing so much to reduce the number of hungry people. You know, United Nations is telling us about 733 million people all over the world are hungry, about 2.9 billion food insecure. But like you rightly pointed out, close to 91 million people too are in that bracket, are in that, in that space. So what are we doing as a nation? I don't see us taking drastic steps to reduce that number. Rather, we are moving up in the hunger space. Now Nigeria is 110 out of 127 in the world. Like you rightly pointed out, we've grown by 1 million. Now we are with Nigeria, Ethiopia, Yemen, while other nations are working. Funny enough, most interesting of nations working on their hunger is Afghanistan and some other countries working on their hunger index to make sure that people have right and access to food. And you know what, United Nations is also emphasizing something this year, that is a right to food. After air and water, the next thing we should prioritize as a nation is food. But I'm not sure we are doing that much in our implementation in Nigeria.
So what would you like to see to make you think or believe that we're doing the right things towards food security?
Okay, I think the first thing I want to see is, let's say, a clear program of the government. Last year, July, the president gave about 11 points on what they work on, and most of us got excited that yes, these are clear policies, but the implementation became watered. There was no, 500,000 hectares to be cleared, commodity board to be set, the food and water industry to work together so that we can do all year planting. But we've not seen actions in this space. So I think what we need to see now is up-to-date information and briefing on those 11-point items. We want to see how the food and the fertilizers, the grains that the government promised to give to farmers and hungry Nigerians, want to see how they are being distributed, data of how they are being distributed. I think if we start seeing this, we will know the government is really ready and serious. You know, one key thing also in that space is the commodity board. That has not been talked about. I'm not seeing action. Of course, we've also said this severally, that we cannot keep relying on hoes and cutlasses. We can't keep relying on high interest fund to run agriculture in Nigeria. So now what have we done? For 4 or 5 years, we've been talking about recapitalizing Bank of Agric, and myself and you, we've discussed it severally. What have they done? Until I see that being done, I won't take Nigerian government serious about agriculture.
Joko, thank you for reminding me about the Bank of Agri, because the MD is your friend and you were supposed to help us get him to talk to us, and that hasn't been successful for months now. So maybe you also have your own little part to play.
Of course, I will always do anything to make sure food is being produced en masse in Nigeria. And of course, probably one of these forums will try and get the MD of Bank of Agri to come and share their view, because this bottleneck in production is taking us back. It's taking us back. Look at the recently released data you just read out. Our food inflation, we made about 2 months progress. Now, all the progress made in 2 months has been lost just because the fuel price was increased. And now, one of the things I think the government needs to start doing, we need to subsidize those input that goes into direct production, the seedlings, there should be direct subsidies. We've enjoyed subsidies even as young as I am during the time of President Jonathan, when Dr. Akinwumi Adesina was the minister. We enjoyed subsidized input as farmers. So the fertilizers should be subsidized and given directly to farmers. The input should be subsidized, given to farmers. That's when we will know, we'll start feeling it as farmers and as Nigerians, that the government is really prioritizing food security. And, look at the effect of the flood in Borno and so many other northern states now. And it's going to have serious effect in the few numbers coming up for the rest of the year and early next year. So those are the things, we look at the numbers, about 3.3 million people displaced already because of all these floods. I'm sure 90% of this number are farmers. About 31.1 of them, over close to 800,000 hectares lost already due to flood and other issues in Nigeria at the moment. We are not talking about recovering those land. We are not talking about multiplying our annual yield per hectare. So until we start having conversations, until we start having the private sectors driving some of this change in collaboration with government, then I won't take this government serious.
All right, Tabot. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your passion with us. I guess that's why we've been asking for the Minister of Agriculture. He hasn't answered us. We've seen him on our sister program, Politics Today, but we will keep hope alive and believe that one day he would answer the business program and come and speak to us, because there's so many issues around food security. And when you talk about food, everybody's involved. The rich and the poor are concerned. So we hope that one of these days, perhaps some of those issues you've raised, where we see policies or we hear policies, but we actually don't see the implementation, would that to be some of the things we'll ask him. But thank you so much, Mr. Banjoko, for sharing this celebration day with us.
Thank you, Amy, for having me.
All right, so we move from food, which is everybody's business, well, to maybe those who are mostly concerned about it, primary concern, but it's everybody's concern. But today we're not talking about them before this story, because today we're discussing women's economic power. So some of those phrases you heard about women, it's not relevant today. Today is women's economic power. And we're doing that with a face that you know, at least a name that you know very well in the beauty industry. She's a visionary founder and former managing director of House of Tara, looking beautiful as representing your sector, your industry. Good to have you here, Tara. Good afternoon.
Wonderful to see you. Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see you, and thank you for having me.
Great. So we're talking about World Food Day, and I know food is everybody's business. As a woman, of course, you take care of yourself, but then after that, it's your family, and it's a major concern. How has it been for you going to the market to buy food stuff these days?
And when I get into the market, I'm thinking to myself, how are we coping? Because it's impacting everyone. But as female entrepreneurs, as we grow in our businesses, we also understand the importance of managing the resources that we have. Because when you're building your business, you learn these principles. And that's what we're applying now as entrepreneurs, or even at home, is to say, how do we manage what we have? How do we get the best from what we have? And many people are now, alternating and thinking about growing their own food at home. These are some of the conversations that as female entrepreneurs we're having consistently, because we do have the power to make those sort of decisions in our homes. Because now our earning income has increased, but also because we know how powerful it is and the role that we play in our homes. And so the conversations is now shifting from depending on the farmers to saying, what can we plant in our homes as well? So, yeah.
I hope you're not going to dust people like Mr. Banjoko off the radar. When we're not producing our own, then we don't need farmers anymore. We might as well be our own farmers.
We want to imitate the first lady of Nigeria.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes.
But anyways, we know you as a pioneer on many fronts in the beauty industry. But when we look at GDP numbers, it doesn't seem like we see a whole lot of movement there. How active is the beauty industry in Nigeria?
It is active. I think about when I started 26 years ago, and today almost every street you'd find a makeup artist or someone who's in the beauty space, whether it's a spa. That was not the case 26 years ago. And the reason why it's attractive because people are getting financial independence and economic power from that industry. The Nigerian beauty industry is today valued at $5.2 billion. And there's projections that by 2026 it will get up to $5.8 billion. You're seeing that because we have a young population who are conscious of their beauty and their looks, very fashion forward, and interested also to build economic power and finding ways that they can translate their skill to income. And now that they are receiving income, how do they take that skill and actually build and establish a business? And I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. There's still potential for growth around the digital space. There's also potential for growth, not just in the digital space, but also altogether, skincare and the likes. But I think that we're seeing a lot of growth already in the industry.
Yeah, but I wonder how much of this growth is being captured, because if you just said if you go down the streets, I mean, a lot of them seem to be so informal, you can hardly capture it into the data. So perhaps there's an underestimation, when we look at the numbers.
For sure there's an underestimation. And I think that micro entrepreneurs they're not putting their monies where they're not recording in a way that data can be captured. But you can see it so visibly. I mean, I remember the Ijebu Ode festival that was shown, that went viral, right? And did you see the sheer number of women who were professionally made up is a sign, right, that there's growth in that industry.
That was Ojide Oba.
Yes.
But it was the man that trended most.
I know. But we who are in this industry, we're more interested in seeing where are the numbers going. And so we could see it also in that space. Yeah.
So whether they're formally acknowledged or not, you see young ladies and men too. Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of men also in that industry becoming independent, because of this. But we wonder you talked about skills, turning your skills into revenue, if there's a conscious effort at that. Because at the end of the day, it might just be people are now leaving the informal or the small businesses who should be encouraged to the bigger one because of quality of work. And also, are we even producing any of these things locally? Because if we really want to create revenue and value, we don't need to wait for imported products also.
I think we're doing quite a number here in Nigeria, especially in the skincare space. We're manufacturing a lot of our skincare products.
But are the ingredients from Nigeria?
Some of them are, and some are not. So our packaging, for example, predominantly is not from Nigeria, but a lot of the ingredients is now. A lot of what we're also seeing is people are not just sticking around skincare, but there's also the talent of the skill. And our movie industry is also growing. And with the movie industry also, with the expansion internationally, we're seeing more work for makeup artists. There's also the space for not just skincare and makeup, but also in terms of manufacturing and scaling of those products as well. I think a few areas of growth that we need to see. It's more education, and education beyond the talent, because Nigerians, we're very talented, right? It's now around the business of the talent. And I'm hoping that we'll see more collective efforts in creating education that will get people to become more, not just owners of skills, but also people who are building and establishing businesses for the long term.
Yeah, I guess we can put that on doyens like you in the industry. How much are you doing to get, especially the upcoming skills and talents, educated?
That's what we've done as a House of Tara. We've trained over 15,000, between 15,000 to 25,000 people, either as makeup artists or as micro entrepreneurs. We don't train just for the skill, because we know that in the long term, we're thinking of establishing businesses. If you think about House of Tara, for example, I started as a makeup artist. And the model that we built was beyond makeup artistry to actually be building and establishing a business that can then become an employer of labor. And today we're seeing that. Naira Metrics, for the very first time, did an entire expose on the beauty industry in Nigeria just this last week and highlighted 8 players in the industry. That has never been done before. And I think it's telling on the impact that we're having on the industry as a whole.
But I sense that your passion is economic power of the women. So how do we put, you talked about having, for instance, like a curriculum, that anybody can step into and move from one stage to the other. How do we get that to be full-blown and known for especially the women?
I think that's already happening, and we're seeing a lot. So I think about West Africa Expo, for example, which is an international expo that comes and hosts in Nigeria every year. When they do the expo, the idea behind it is how do we get local players to meet with international manufacturers. That is just in the last 5 years. There is also the Beauty in Motherland Expo that we've had for the last 2 years, focused on the beauty industry. And then to think about an economic power campaign like her money, her power, that is really, really about changing the cultural perception about economic power for women, and then highlighting enterprise, but then zooming in on beauty and saying enterprise is a tool by which women can have economic power, but we can also zoom in on beauty, and then highlighting voices in the beauty industry across the country, from the north to the south, to say how do we use our voices, because we know that your voice is an influence, and how do we use this campaign to elevate your voice in a way that younger women can now begin to see role models who have economic power, and to say, because this person has economic power, I believe that I can have economic power as well.
But we need to balance this conversation, because gender equality is not just about the women,
Correct.
It's also about the men. So we don't now have a tilted,
Absolutely.
if you understand,
Absolutely.
which is what we're trying to fight against. And a lot of people are saying it's like women are getting too much attention now, leaving the boys out.
Well, I'm a mother of boys, so I understand very well. However, there's still a huge gap that needs to be met. And I would say that, and one of the things I say
Would you say that gap is created by culture?
Some of it. But what I say these days is the future is both male and female. And I think it's important that we don't change that, right? Make sure that we carry the boys along. However, there's still a lot of issues, right, that women experience. And because women are still experiencing that, there's work to be done. There's work to be done around men also campaigning for women, right? Making the workplace more safe for women, right? And if women are entrepreneurs, how do we get them to get more access to capital? Because women are not getting as much access to capital as men are. These are real issues. However, I'm very big on what is the economic power that women have today, and how do we, who have economic power, continue to speak up so that other young women can know that it is possible for them as well, and begin to change the momentum, the voice, the language as being used about women today.
But when you look at it from the government perspective, would you say we have enough policies, laws to protect the women?
No, we don't have enough policies. But I don't want to talk too much about what government is not doing, because I think I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that. I think that's now become part of our rhetoric. And if I did that, then I wouldn't be where I am today. If I waited for government to fix my counterfeiting issues, I wouldn't be here today. So my charge to female entrepreneurs and those who have economic power to say, listen, we can't wait for government, right? We will do the best that we can do. We can put our collective efforts together to create more economic power, but also to say to ourselves, how do we role model so that the next generation of young women can know that because she did, I can. And that's the campaign, that's the voice, that's the message of the her money, her power. It's like you have money, but it's not just because you're struggling, it's because you have the capacity now to change the language and narrative of women across the country.
For a young lady who's watching you now, and obviously as head of Tara, House of Tara and all that, and it's like, oh, I'd really like to be like her. What can you advise her as could be her biggest challenge, and how can she overcome it?
When I think about my own challenges in building my business, whether it's from, first of all, going into an industry that wasn't well established, I would say if you're going into an industry that's not well established, I don't want you to be encumbered by that. Think about innovation. Think about what do the customers need? what viable product can I bring out to solve their problem? Where do I want that product to be? Think about the presence. Whether it's online or it is physical locations. So think about not just the viability of the product, but the profits, because we can't build viable businesses that are not profitable. How do I price my product in a way that it captures the audience that I'm trying to find? These are some of the things I want young women who are out there to say. Enterprise is a pathway for economic power. Tara is here as a representation of how enterprise can give you economic power, but it's not just that, it's also about building that economic power through a viable product, thinking about the presence of that product, thinking about the pricing and the profitability that comes with that, and also thinking about the people being you as a person, you who's the owner of the business, people who will help you serve your customers, and then your customers as well. And I think the campaign around Harmony and Power is highlighting that path to say, listen, there are different paths for economic power. Building an enterprise is a path for economic power, but it's not just building, it's building a viable product.
Building a viable product. And I guess you have to know that the reality is you're going to face a lot of hitches.
Correct.
But you have to be ready.
And I often say this, listen, I face multiple hitches, including the cultural issues, right, around being a woman, building and raising a family. But listen, the Bukwawoshikas did it, right? And many other, the Alakijas did it. And I'm here and I did it. And I'm saying to young women, if these women have done it, you can.
You can do it. Thank you so much, Tara, so much for that inspiring talk. I'm sure a lot of the ladies watching, they have goose pimples on their body. Tara Fayadotoye is the visionary founder and former managing director of House of Tara. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll head to the markets right here on Business Incorporated. Stay with us. Welcome back to watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. It's market time now, and we see that it seems Aradel has lost its steam. Well, about 48 hours after it was listed on the NGX, moving from the NESD to the NGX, we saw a nice movement there. But for this afternoon, we see that intraday numbers are in the red, 0.30%, even though we're still on 98,000. Looks like perhaps profit taking on Aradel has started. We move to Johannesburg Stock Exchange, South Africa. They're back to 86,000, right? Even though it's still slight, 86,017, but it's up 0.08% at intraday. We'll go to Egypt, other parts of the continent, and we see a red market at intraday 0.2, while Nairobi Stock Exchange closed Wednesday is deeply in the red, but still retaining the 110. No, they lost. They were on 111, but they lost a bit of that. So we see it back to 110 level for that market. We go to the Middle East to see how that market's doing. Dubai is 0.30% in the green, 4,483.03. Abu Dhabi follows suit, almost the same level, 0.27%. We'll go to other parts at Middle East is Tadawul. Tadawul also the same. Just Qatar. Qatar is deeply in the red, almost 1%, 0.87% at 10,735. We move to the United States, where we see a flat market mostly, starting from the Dow Jones, as Wall Street is looking to see whether equities can rebound to record highs. So we see the Dow Jones in the red slightly, 0.04%, S&P in the green, but also marginal right there, 0.02%, on NASDAQ, 0.08%. So a bit flat and sluggish movement that we see in the United States, but there's less than 2% from high-tech stocks like semiconductors in particular. They weigh down that S&P 500 and NASDAQ, and the tech sector slid at the close of Tuesday's trade. NVIDIA also had a deep fall yesterday at the close of Tuesday's trade. 4% is what it shaved off from its share price. Now we move to Asia and see market there traded low on Wednesday following declines on Wall Street with Japan's Nikkei there in the red, 1.83%, very risky for it there, almost losing the 39,000 level, while Kospi of Korea 0.88%, 2,610.36. Hang Seng Index also in the red. And we see other parts of the Asian market to see if we could see other parts of the Asian market. Can we see that there? You have in Shanghai, the most volatile of it, 0.05% in the green, 3,202.95. And in India, it's a red market today at 24,971.30. Let's just see, we got some of those details from U.S. market. Told you about how NVIDIA lost about 4% yesterday. Maria Bread, our correspondent in Washington, has more details of how the Tuesday trade closed.
The U.S. stock market is down on Tuesday as the Nasdaq leads the way, being down by 1%. NVIDIA causes declines as the stock chips sell off on Tuesday. Investors are watching to see what will happen as both the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones are down by 0.8%. This has investors a bit concerned as the economy was showing some strength and banks are showing some earnings. But this does not mean that the U.S. stock market is able to sustain an upward swing, as many were hopeful that the end of the year would be ending in a bit of an up. But only time will tell to see what will happen in the next days and weeks ahead.
Thank you so much, Maria. Now let's move straight to Europe, where the auto industry is in the news again. It was long on the backbone of the German economy. It's been in some trouble lately, and our colleagues in DW have always been bringing that. Lately, they say low demand, competition from China. These are many problems, or some of the problems that the sector has been struggling with. Among the hardest hit companies is Volkswagen, and they're finding themselves in court this week. Well, let's find out what they're doing in court. Last, what are they doing in court?
Thanks for having me, Ini. Yeah, that's a great question, actually. What is going on? This story is so ludicrous. Volkswagen is in trouble, as you rightly pointed out, after they've seen lower sales, most drastically, of course, on their once biggest market in China, but also domestically. They're in desperate needs to cut costs, and there were huge protests just a few days ago at Volkswagen plants over the threat of major job cuts that could cost thousands of workers their positions. Now, as part of their strategy to cut costs, Volkswagen decided to cut salaries for everyone, including management, and they also decided to not extend the raise to former managers that have actually retired early but are still on the company's payroll. Now, around 120 of them are fighting back. They say Volkswagen promised them a raise of 3.3% and a €1,000 bonus to compensate for inflation. And I gotta say, it's almost impressive, the gall of these people not being willing to make any kind of sacrifice and to just keep their demands up while a company is in crisis, partially due to their own doing, because, as I said, these are not workers on the factory floor, these were actually managers.
Yeah, but why would you say the management is to be blamed for this?
Well, it just seems pretty clear that for years the company hasn't reacted fast enough to changing trends in the automotive sector. They were asleep at the wheel when it came to electric mobility, which allowed China to move into that segment at such a pace and with such force that they actually pushed Volkswagen and other brands to the fringes of the market. Now Volkswagen is suffering. However, to be fair, there are other problems too that are not Volkswagen caused. A few years into the so-called Verkehrswende here in Germany, that is the organized switch towards electric mobility, trends in that market are generally not good. Car insurance company Hook just came out with some numbers. As of late, they say only 3.9% of customers are buying a fully electric vehicle, down from 6 to 7% last year. As of those already driving an electric electric car, a full 34% have said they wanted to switch back and buy a combustion engine car next. Now, that's partially due to frustrations over a lack of charging infrastructure. There aren't enough charging stations in Germany, and especially not enough fast, high-powered charging stations. Now, that's something the entire auto industry and the government are to blame for.
All right, so let's shift away from that. Look at investors. What are they looking at in today's market?
I'd say there is one bit of data that investors are interested in today. We're getting an update later on retail sales in August. Now, it sounds like that's just a tiny speck of economic data and only the latest monthly update, but we're heading towards another ECB meeting on Thursday, and any hint as to how the economy is doing, especially with an eye on the consumer, on spending, on inflation, all that is welcome as possible early indicators of what the central bank might decide in terms of its monetary policy. For now, bets are on another interest rate cut, but obviously we won't know for sure until tomorrow.
All right, we'll wait till tomorrow. Thank you, Lars. Now, moving on, as the GITEX Global 2024 event continues in Dubai, Nigerian delegates are there, and they had a meeting held by the Nigerian government. At the event, they shared their readiness and preparations to host GITEX Nigeria. That'll be next year, 2025, which is set to bring global investors into the country through the GITEX Tech Expo, and to explore opportunities offered by growing Nigerian startup ecosystem and also help them secure capital. 3 days into the 2024 GITEX Global, innovators, government agencies, and investors are conversing on how to make innovation work for Africa. The spotlight is on artificial intelligence and the emerging technologies that are set to reshape the digital landscape. It's a platform for countries to get exposed.
We are doing well in Africa, but that is not enough because we can do well in the world as well. So GITEX is coming to create or to orchestrate our global presence. GITEX, they will have GITEX Nigeria, GITEX Europe, GITEX Asia, and GITEX Global in Dubai.
It's all about marketing our country, telling the whole world that things are changing in Nigeria. And Nigeria is ready for digital business. We know what Mr. President is doing in the area of job creation, economy, developing our economy, and inviting foreign direct investment in the country.
Nigeria is also here to shop.
To see products and solutions that could be of benefit to Nigerian states, Nigerian citizens.
GITEX Global runs from Monday, October 14 to Friday, October 18, 2024. Now, according to the latest edition of Africa Plus, the World Bank's twice-yearly regional economic update released this month, emphasis there is on stabilizing economies and transforming education, which are crucial for equipping Africa's growing workforce. The report highlights the need for stronger foundational skills and market-relevant expertise to drive inclusive growth across the continent. Our correspondent in South Africa, Innocent Semusa, filed in this report.
The World Bank says despite the signs of a fragile economic recovery, sub-Saharan Africa remains stuck in low gear with a large youth population at risk of being left behind. With the high unemployment rate in Africa, what is the role of the World Bank? Andrew Dabalin is the World Bank chief economist for the Africa region.
It's the role of the economy and policymakers to create the conditions and the environment for jobs to be created by businesses. So I don't think you should blame yourself or you should blame the university.
Andrew says urgent education reform is key in unlocking faster and more inclusive growth in Africa.
What we need to do is to really improve the capabilities of the young people coming into the labor market. We need to improve their education, we need to improve their health, we need to improve their skills and their ability to be able to use these new technologies.
Vice Principal at the University of Pretoria, Professor Loretta Furia, says early childhood development is necessary.
That's where you lay the foundation for creative thinking, for innovative thinking, but it's your basic literacy, it's your basic numeracy that already where the child is prepared for it.
Eric Asante from Ghana shares the same sentiments.
As Africa, we are thinking of how to promote inclusive education where every learner can learn at his or her own pace. Then we need to make good use of technology.
But which skills should be prioritized in Africa? Omole Mojobe is the student at the University of Pretoria.
Is what we keep going through, especially as a humanities student coming from the law faculty. How do we bridge the gap between what students have and what the economy or the social space needs?
The report, which is in its 30th edition and on the theme of transforming education for inclusive growth, says economic activity in the region is projected to grow by 3% in 2024 from a low of 2.4% in 2023, driven primarily by growth in private consumption and, of course, investment. Inflation is forecasted to ease from 7.1% in 2023 to 4.8% in 2024. From Pretoria, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
We're still in South Africa, where that country's bailout bill for state firms nears $30 billion. Power utility Eskom Holdings Limited has received the bulk of the bailout, and it would have received a total of 496 billion rand by the end of the current financial year. Power utility Eskom has received this bulk and said that it will receive even more by the end of the year, but it has applied to the National Energy Regulator of South Africa to approve a 36.1% electricity price hike from April 2025. That's an 11.8% price increase in 2026 and 9.1% increase in the next year, 2027. Away from South Africa now, Egypt and Djibouti have strengthened their bilateral ties with the signing of a new agreement to develop renewable energy infrastructure. The agreement, signed by Egyptian Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy Mahmoud Esmat and Djibouti Minister of Energy and Natural Resources Younis Ali Gouedi, will see Egypt supply and install a 276.5 kilowatt photovoltaic power plant in Djibouti. The project is to take a broader effort to enhance cooperation between the two countries in the field of renewable energy. Egypt will also provide technical assistance and training to Djibouti's energy sector. The solar power plant is expected to boost Djibouti's energy capacity and support economic development in the region. This partnership aligns with both countries' commitment to sustainable development and the transition to cleaner energy sources. It also underscores Egypt's role as a regional leader in renewable energy technology and expertise. All right, let's go to the crypto space now and see what's going on there. And today, we'll look at Nigeria. So we are talking about adoption and regulation and all of that. But guess what? There's also, crisis, would call it, quarrel, brewing in one of the arms or one of the groups that are supposed to speak up for the adoption and the regulation of the crypto industry in Nigeria. We'll have that conversation. But first of all, let's see what the numbers look like. I think Bitcoin is really flying at this time at $67,750.90. That's an increase of more than 3% in the last hour. That is impressive. And some people say that we are heading to 70,000 real soon. We see Ethereum, of course, is following suit, but not as impressive as Bitcoin. BNB is also there, Solana, and then we have a couple of reds, Cardano, Avex, and Naira. We see those one. Doges and SHIB. SHIB hasn't been in the news for a bit, but let's talk to Chuta now, and first of all, find out if this is going to hit 70 in the nearest future, maybe in the next couple of days, and what's driving it. Hi, Chuta, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to join you on this program.
Great. So did we expect Bitcoin to hit 67 today? I don't know. Did you people see it coming, the crypto community?
Yes, the signs were all there over the last few days that we are really getting ready for the next leg up. And earlier today, we identified that the whale wallet that transferred close to $2 billion to Binance was a significant indicator to show that probably the market was going to get a new leg up. So we are very expectant from now until probably the first week of November is really looking like a very, very volatile period for the crypto market. So we're hopeful that the bull run probably is set to kick off.
So do we see 70 in the horizon anytime soon?
So this is not financial advice, but anything can happen in crypto. It could move to 70K because that's really the next level where we're going to be experiencing some level of resistance, 70K. And it could happen. It could happen in the next couple of days or next few hours. And also it might also not happen. This crypto, anything can happen because people might just choose to take their profit and you can't stop them. Okay, so the real market move comes when you have a lot of people who don't really think that there's need to be cautious. That's FOMO. So once there's FOMO kicks in, anything can happen. So it's the market. So that's what it is.
All right. So tell us about what's going on at CBAN as stakeholders in Blockchain Technology Association of Nigeria. Just when it seems we're trying to convince the government and regulators that the crypto is legal, is good. We hear those crises brewing, and one wonders what's at the heart of it. This is not a political group, so we shouldn't be seeing this kind of drama.
Well, yes, there is a significant leadership tussle because probably I don't want to be seen as someone who is sitting on anybody's side, but then we as industry players, we don't really think that we should be having this kind of problem at this time because we are labored to get to the point where we are, and people should be able to make sacrifices and put away their personal interests and look at the interest of the industry, interest of the participants, the people who are expecting to see this industry become what they have been praying for it to become. So it's really unfortunate that we're experiencing this kind of move at this time. But to be honest with you, both the industry leadership and even some of our regulators are wading in, and we are hopeful that they will find a common ground to agree to settle these issues and let the industry move forward as one body and as one entity.
Yeah, especially it's an infant industry, and if it has to find its fit and get confidence, then there has to be sacrifices of personal desires. And Wanda, thank you so much for sharing your time and views with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
All right, so that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated. Tomorrow is another one, but I'll still see you at 10 p.m. Guess what? Top of the hour, 2 p.m. For our DSTV viewers, we'll be showing you a rebroadcast of the Ondo PDP governorship campaign flag off. That will be coming at the top of the hour to our DSTV viewers. But for others who have a news track, keeping you up to date on what's happening around you, that's what we do best on Channels TV. I'm John Kwasi at 10 p.m. for the Stock Market Reports.